Welcome to Elizabeth's Chronicles. If you love true crime, consider subscribing. Elmer Crawford was born in 1930. He was an employee of Victoria Racing Club. He had been employed there for 14 years. He was married to Therese Crawford, and the couple had 3 children, Catherine Jane, age 13, James William, age 8, and Karen Jean, age 6. Therese was expecting their 4th child. On July 1, 1970, Elmer Crawford made a strange electrocution device that consisted of a 15-meter length of electrical cable, with a plug at one end, and an extension cord socket on the other end. On the main cable were 5 smaller leads, each having an alligator clip on the end. He waited until his wife and all his children were fast asleep and used the device on his wife, oldest daughter Catherine, and his son, James. He then used the hammer to bash his youngest in the head, 6-year-old Karen, who was the only one not electrocuted by the device. He also bashed James and Catherine in the head, to ensure they were dead. He had previously removed the back seat of his 1956 Holden sedan, so he could fit all of his family's bodies inside. He wrapped each body in a sheet, and put a tarp over them. He drove to Lockhart Gorge, on Victoria's southwest coast, which was 240 kilometers away from his home. He wanted to push the car into the ocean, where he could then report his family missing, and still claim money from the will. However, there was a drainage ditch, preventing him from just pushing the car in. He spent hours, building a bridge out of rocks and debris, so he could then roll the car down the slope, and over the cliff, into the water below. In case the car and bodies were ever located, he attached a hose to the exhaust, and fastened it through the driver's side window, to make it appear as though his wife murdered the children with a hammer, then committed suicide. The ledge was not viewable from his position, and it was pitch black in the late hours of the night, so after pushing the car in, he felt it had reached the water. However, the car landed on the inner edge of the cliff. He headed back home to clean up the crime scene. It's unknown how he returned home. It's speculated he may have hitchhiked. On July 2, tourists noticed the car on the ledge of the cliff below at around 1:30 p.m. Crawford was seen in his driveway at around 5:30 p.m. the same day. At around 6:20 p.m. a registration check on the car led police to the Crawford home. Constable McCarty knocked on the door, but got no answer. It's believed he was still inside, trying to clean the crime scene, but at the time this was just a routine inquiry, so the constable just left, and went back to the police station. Crawford gave up on cleaning the home, and realized they probably had located the car, and just fled the scene. At around 10 p.m., Constable McCarty and another officer went back to the Crawford home, after more information came forward of foul play. From the top of the cliff, with binoculars, they could see blood on the seats. When nobody answered at the home, with probable cause, they broke into the home, and found blood on the mattresses. The carpet cleaner sitting on the table, a liquid cleaner poured over bloody trails in the hallway. Cliff rescuers Cecil Burgin and George Cumming were harnessed down. They secured the car to keep it from dropping into the sea, and began searching it. When they lifted the tarp, they found the 4 bodies under it. Police believe the motive for the crime may be the pregnancy. At the Crawford home, in the lounge on the coffee table, they found opposing books on abortion, one for and one against. Therese was a devout Catholic, and probably refused his request for an abortion. It also came out that Elmer Crawford had been stealing money and goods from his employer for years. Police believe that he didn't hit his wife with the hammer so he could stage it to appear that she murdered the children, then committed suicide. They theorize that if the car had gone into the water as he planned, he may have gotten away with his plan. Despite a $100,000 reward, Elmer Crawford has never been found. He would be 91 years old today. These age-progressed photos show how he would appear at 91. Lee Ford was born in 1968. He met Leslie in 1990, 8 years after her first marriage to Michael Tranter had ended. In her marriage to Michael she had 4 children: Sarah Jane Tranter, age 17, Anne-Marie Tranter, age 16, Stephen Tranter, age 14, and Craig Tranter, age 13. Leslie didn't work, and Ford only worked sporadically at building or roofing. He typically spent most of his time drinking at the local cricket club. He was a strict stepfather, especially to his stepdaughter Sarah Jane. In May of 2000, Leslie spoke with a lawyer due to concerns she had about her husband's violent behavior, and that she suspected her husband was having a sexual relationship with her daughter, Mary Jane. The lawyer contacted social services but nothing came from it. By late August, Leslie threatened to stop Ford from seeing the 2 younger children the couple had together. After an argument, Ford went to the garage to cool off. While there, he spotted a rope. He grabbed the rope, and went back into the home and snuck up behind his wife and strangled her to death with it. After seeing what he had done, he went to the kitchen and strangled each of his stepchildren from behind. He then wrapped each body in a sheet, and buried them with lime in the shed, near the garden. After the murders, Ford told everyone the family had come down with food poisoning and were sick. He sent his 2 biological children to stay with relatives. He then told neighbors that Leslie had moved out and taken her 4 children with her. He called the older children's schools and told them the children had moved out of the area, then returned some books to the school. He then tried to pretend things were normal by asking a neighbor if he could store the children's Christmas gifts in his house so the kids wouldn't see them. Leslie's brother, Peter Wyatt, contacted police when he hadn't been able to reach his sister or the children in weeks. Police visited Ford to do a welfare check. Ford told police that Leslie left him, taking the children. After the police visit, Ford moved the 2 older children's bodies. Later that day, Ford was pulled over while driving at Bodmin Moor. The children were not with him, they were safe with relatives still. That night, police searched the property and found the bodies. Police were able to establish a timeline of the murders by looking at text messages sent by Sarah. The last one was sent at 2:37 p.m. on August 30th. The court discovered that Ford had become increasingly jealous of Sarah Jane's friendship with boys of her own age. Nigel Pascoe, the prosecutor, said the killings were not a crime of passion, but deliberate. We say by any standards this was an enormous, and pitiful tragedy, and a tale of true horror. The sheer mechanics involved in 5 separate, and virtually identical killings suggests a careful and planned homicide, he said. Lee Ford pled guilty to all 5 murders. He was sentenced to 5 life terms. Michael Tranter, the biological father of the 4 children Lee Ford murdered, is devastated by the loss of his children. He said, "It is coming up to Christmas now, and I think, another Christmas without them. If they were here, I'd be buying presents for their kids now, they'd be calling me Granddad. But instead they are lying in their grave. And I am haunted by the fact that him that did it, I can never say his name. He might get out of prison one day. He's 45 now, and I don't know that he isn't coming out in 15 years. I don't understand how some people in life can say they forgive. I do not forgive, I never could." Elmer Crawford decided he did not want another baby. Instead of divorcing his wife, he murdered his family. He tried to make it appear as though she did the killings, but authorities put the pieces together. He was a cold, Heartless man who should have spent his entire life in prison, instead he's been able to stay just beneath the radar and escape capture. Hopefully fate dealt him with a life of torture and pain. Lee Ford was an abusive man who preyed upon his oldest stepchild. When his wife discovered his evil doings, she confronted him, and it cost her dearly. In the end he murdered his wife and all 4 stepchildren. He was a sick and twisted man who should never see freedom. That concludes this episode. Keep your eye out for episode 21, coming soon. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing. Thanks for watching.